Welcome back to Building Character, where we figure out how to play as your favorite fictional characters in Dungeons & Dragons. Join the Patreon for character sheets and poll voting, and like and subscribe to ice skate uphill next time you play. Maybe. Today we're building Blade, a vampire hunter and a heavily requested character. I'm happy to do it. Blade is cool, but when you ask me to build a character with magical weapons, martial arts skills, and superhuman physicality, I just don't want anybody to be mad when I make a character with magical weapons, martial arts skills, and superhuman physicality. To explain in song,
we want a monk.
They want the monster monk.
I can say monk.
This kind of feels like a trap.
We won't get mad.
Alright, can say monk. Oh wow, another can say monk. Oh, that's so cool.
See, I knew it was gonna happen.
Let's start off with our goals for this build. First, Blade is our name, but it's also our reputation, so we need a silvered blade. It's also not actually our name, it's Eric. He just doesn't really act like an Eric. I feel like Eric is the name of an accountant who says they got into accounting because the numbers are just a fun little puzzle for them. Shoutouts to Erics in the audience. People will upvote you in the comments because I dunked on you. Next, we need big heckin' chompers with all the powers of a vampire and none of their weaknesses, a line that's repeated no less than 7 times in the trilogy of movies. Finally, we've got to be great at tracking and smacking the undead with ways to sniff them down and cut them out. Or the other way around. Sniff them out and cut them down. You knew what I was trying to say. For stats, we're using the standard point array from the player's handbook. Roll for stats if you want, just make sure your dexterity and wisdom are looking good, which shouldn't be hard. We'll be kicking it off with dexterity. Your swords aren't that long and your ranged weapons are, well, they're ranged. That's dexterity. Wisdom next, you've got to be able to smell something that stinks. Vampires. Constitution after that, part of the half-immortal warrior bit is being half-immortal. Follow that up with strength. I'd like it to be higher. There's definitely a bit of anime energy from the edgy guy who is good at everything and can't die. Intelligence is also lower than I'd like, you know the lore, but only after Whistler dumps it for you, and we'll dump charisma. You're not good at talking to people, even if you're good at scaring them. If you want to get all your favorite cool vampire powers in D&D, but don't want any of the drawbacks, try playing the race known as Vampire from Planeshift Ixalan, which is Wizards printed stuff somewhere between Unearthed Arcana and officially published material. It's like the half vampire of official content. You get +2 charisma and +1 wisdom, 60 feet of dark vision, a bloodthirst, letting you make a melee attack against a creature that deals 1 piercing and 1d6 necrotic damage. You reduce the target's HP by that amount, and you heal that amount. If that drops them to 0, they die. So at level 1, you have a method of self-healing, HP total reduction, and no death save deaths. If that wasn't enough, you also get Feast of Blood, giving you advantage on strength and dexterity saves for a minute after you do that. It's kind of busted. For your background, you're part of a war nobody knows is happening. I'd say that makes you a soldier. For athletics and intimidation proficiencies, I know it's kind of basic, but so is playing an edgelord. Remember, I bring the build, you bring the character. So when I make a monk, it's not my job to make it different. That's your job at the table. You can use skills like acrobatics and stealth to do that. Can you imagine a monk with high dexterity? What a world. I'd love to grab perception, but monks don't get perception, which feels like baloney to me. We'll grab it later. You do get martial arts, letting you make an unarmed attack as a bonus action after you make an attack action with a monk weapon or unarmed attack. Since your moniker is Blade, let's talk about blades. Short sword is the best sword you can have at this level of monk, and for your thrown bladed boomerangs, I'd go for daggers. Monk weapons point out that you should reflavor them to be funky in the description, so you get that monk, that funk. You can't be funky in heavy armor though, so enjoy that unarmored defense, making your AC 10 plus your dexterity and wisdom modifier when you're not wearing armor. Your Blade. Not man full of blades. Second level monks go faster when they're not wearing armor with unarmored movement for some real vampire speed. You also get key points you can use to do cool vampire stuff like Step of the Wind, which lets you dash or disengage as a bonus action, and it'll double your jump distance further round. Who needs to fly when you've got mad hops? Patient Defense lets you dodge as a bonus action, giving enemies disadvantage to hit you with attacks, and you have advantage on dexterity saving throws. You might already with Feast of Blood, so you might want to save the key point for something like Flurry of Blows to make 2 unarmed attacks with your bonus action if you really just need to break some vampire fangs. Third level monks can choose a monastic tradition, and the joke was in the intro, but yeah, Kensei monk. Magical weapons, cooler weapons than other monks, that's what the Kensei is all about, and that's what Blade is all about. You can now make a longsword a Kensei weapon to deal 1d8 slashing damage with your dexterity modifier. I'll recommend a hand crossbow for a gun. I know that there are guns, but not in every setting, and I don't know if your DM will give them to you. I guess I also don't know if your DM will let you play a vampire, but Hey, while you're holding a melee Kensei weapon, you can make an agile parry adding 2 to your AC if you make an unarmed attack as part of your attack action. Don't think of it as not using the sword, because you are using it, you're just using it to block. You can make a Kensei shot with a ranged weapon, adding a d4 to the damage with ranged attacks with a Kensei weapon for that round. Once we hit the 6th level of Kensei Monk, you can pick another weapon to be a Kensei weapon. I'd pick a dagger because you can make a ranged attack with a dagger, even though it's not a ranged weapon, it's a thrown weapon, and basically you can just do both with one of these, if that makes sense. To handle ranged attacks better yourself, deflect some missiles, letting you reduce damage from incoming ranged attacks by 1d10 plus your monk level and dexterity modifier. If you drop it to 0, you can even spend a key point to yeet it back. Isn't that nice? Of course, magical weapons, martial arts, immortality, all of these things pale in comparison to the raw power of calligraphy. Way of the Brush gives you proficiency with calligrapher supplies. You're now a god! 4th level monks get an ability score improvement or a feat. I'd go for the crossbow expert feat to fire multiple shots with a crossbow in the same round without having to worry about the reloading property. You can also fire at close range without disadvantage and can fire shots as a bonus action using a hand crossbow, so it's pretty much martial arts with a gun. Martial darts, gun fu, shoot goodery. I think I peaked at martial darts. I just wanted to have some options. Monks also get slow fall at this level, letting you reduce falling damage by 5 times your monk level as a reaction. I guess you've got tougher bones. Is that part of vampirism? I'm gonna say yes. 5th level monks get Stunning Strike, letting you force a Constitution saving throw of 8 plus your proficiency bonus and wisdom modifier on creatures you hit with a melee attack, failing that they're stunned until the end of your next turn, giving you advantage on follow-up attacks. And you get more attacks thanks to Extra Attack, which lets you make 2 attacks instead of 1 with your action for a maximum of 4 attacks in a round after your blows are flurried. And all of your monk attacks deal more damage now that your monk die is a d6. Well, I guess not a longsword, but your punches will be better. Monk level 5 is good. 6th level monk is pretty good too, making all of your attacks magical as a Kensei monk thanks to key empowered strikes and magical Kensei weapons. I mean, I guess if you attack with a non-Kensei weapon, it wouldn't, but you're not Maul or Battle Axe, you're Blade. Use the blades. To make your blades deal more damage, Deft Strike lets you add an additional monk die to the damage of one attack you make per round by spending a key point in case you need to round a vampire into oblivion. 7th level monks get Evasion, meaning that you'll take half damage on dexterity saves and no damage on successful ones. What if you're not actually immune to sunlight, you're just super good at dex saves? Worth thinking about. You also get Stillness of Mind to remove an effect of charming or frightening as an action, which is probably why none of your movies about vampires end up being scary. Well, Blade 3 is, but not for the right reasons. 8th level monks get another ability score improvement. You've got a lot of odd numbers on your sheet, so round up dexterity and wisdom for a +2 bump to your AC, +1 to all your attack and damage rolls, and +1 to your stunning strike DC. It's a whole lot of good in one ability score improvement. Ain't that fun? Let's bounce over to Ranger now, and we'll be using the class feature variants version of Ranger because the player's handbook version is bad, and this is the most recent version, I hope. I'm writing this video in early August. Anyway, you get an extra skill because you multi-classed into a Ranger. Perception will help you sniff out vampires. Favored Foe lets you cast Hunter's Mark an amount of times per day equal to your Wisdom modifier without concentration, adding a d6 to the damage of attacks you make against a creature, and you have advantage on checks to track them. Lasts for an hour, and you can move it to another creature with a bonus action. That basically means that you've got 3 hours per day for free extra damage as long as you focus on taking vampires down one at a time. Deft Explorer gives you a couple of options. We'll go for Tireless, letting you give yourself temporary HP equal to 1d10 plus your Wisdom modifier, an amount of times per day equal to your Wisdom modifier. You also remove the effects of exhaustion when you take a short rest, which means that you don't have to worry about sleeping as often, but you still should. 8 hours, REM, losing my religion. What am I talking about? Oh yeah, 2nd level of Ranger, you get a fighting style like Dueling to add 2 to the damage of attacks you make when you're holding a weapon in one hand, making you more consistent with your sword. You also get some spells like Jump to triple your jump distance for a minute. Paired with Step of the Wind, you can clear 72 feet horizontally and 24 feet vertically for weird early 2000s CGI jumps. I'd also grab Cure Wounds to heal 1d8 plus your Wisdom modifier as an action, then just do it on yourself for a little non-blood drinking regeneration. You could also just use your slots for more Hunter's Mark though, if you just want things to die. 3rd level Rangers can choose a Conclave. Monster Slayers are good at slaying monsters. Who could have guessed? You have Hunter's Sense, which lets you determine a creature's weaknesses, immunities, and resistances as an action, amount of times per day equal to your Wisdom modifier. I'm guessing everyone is weak to getting stabbed a lot. You also get Slayer's Prey, letting you pick a creature to deal an extra d6 of damage to with weapon attacks on the first hit of each round, which might sound similar to Hunter's Mark because it kind of is, but Hunter's Mark is for every attack, so this is just extra damage on the first one, and that's extra damage on all the other ones. Back over to Monk now. 9th level monks get Unarmored Movement Improvement, improvement, letting you run up a wall or over water as long as you end your turn somewhere solid, letting you really get your mobility on. 10th level monks get purity of body, making you immune to poison and disease, which includes poison damage. Obviously, vampires can't get human sicknesses, but humans can, so wash your hands and wear your mask. Again, the script is being written in early August, but I have a feeling this is still going to be relevant. 11th level Kensei monks can sharpen the blade, letting you spend ki points to add 1 to the attack and damage rolls of a Kensei weapon for a minute with a maximum of 3. Your monk die also bumps up to a D8 here, so you're going to punch as good as you slash. Maybe they'll start calling you fist, but then a Krogan's going to kill you, so I'd stick with blade. 12th level monks get another ability score improvement. Your dexterity is only 16. That's bad. Bump it up. 18. That'll be better, because that's how numbers work. 13th level monks get Tongue of the Sun and Moon, letting you communicate with creatures that can speak any language and they'll understand you. I know he speaks Russian at the end of Blade 1. If you're immortal, I guess you have time to hit your Duolingo appointments. That's nice. 14th level monks get Diamond Soul, making you proficient with all saving throws. You already don't have a negative modifier, but now you have a +6 minimum and up to +10. That really works well for me wanting you to be good at everything. 15th level monks get Timeless Body, meaning that you don't feel the effects of age and you don't need to eat or drink. You're already effectively immortal as a vampire, so this is kind of redundant, but in addition to being redundant, it's also a bit redundant. 16th level monks get our last ability score improvement so we can cap off our dexterity modifier finally. That should make sure that you're landing every hit you send out, missing isn't cool, and you're so cool you wear sunglasses in a sewer at night. Honestly, I respect the flex. Our capstone is the 17th level of Monk for unerring accuracy from Kensei, letting you reroll 1 missed attack per round. If you sharpen the blade enough, you get +14 to your attack roll, so this doesn't really feel like it's going to be useful that often. And if we just did a 4th level of Ranger, we'd get to bump our Wisdom, which has plenty of uses throughout the build, so why take this level? Because your Monk die bumps up to a D10, so now your hand crossbow and punches deal as much damage as your longsword, letting you deal some really solid damage. But how much damage? Well, now that we've hit level 20, let's figure out how viable this build is. With Hunter's Mark, Slayer's Prey, a sharpened blade, and tooling, you can deal 4d10 plus 5d6 plus 35 damage after a flurry of blows. You're also really well rounded, with crazy high saving throws for every ability and no negative modifier for any skill. Finally, you're extraordinarily mobile, with tons of speed and jumps so big you basically have a flying speed. For weaknesses, your HP is a little low for a frontline fighter, somewhere around 120, so even though you've got methods of reducing damage and recovering HP, if you go below 100, Power Word Kill just deletes you. You're also burning through your key points and spell slots pretty quickly, so hopefully you can wrap things up just as quickly. Finally, while you're not bad at intelligence and charisma, you're also not good at them, so lore and persuasion checks could be an issue. But you're not trying to change hearts and minds, you're trying to stab hearts and minds. Sharpen the blade, use the blade, be the blade. Just realize that if you start a YouTube channel about making D&D characters, there's a lot of martial artists who are good at using weapons, and specifically use magical ones. People are going to get mad at you when you build them. Probably won't be an issue for you though. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, subscribe for more. We make 2 videos every week. Join the Patreon for character sheets and poll voting, and subscribe to Tulak and Mango for more Tulak fun.